Genesis 33. Then Jacob looked up. Then Jacob heard Genesis 33. Jacob and Esau make peace. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the house children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives. He put the servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and their children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead. As he approached his brother, he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him through his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked at the woman and children and asked, "Who are these people with you?" "These are the children God has graciously given to me," your servant Jacob replied. Then the servant wives came forward with their children and bowed before him. Next came Leah with her children, and they bowed before him. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed before him. "And what were all the flocks and herds I met as I came?" Esau asked. Jacob replied, "They are a gift, my lord, to ensure your friendship." "My brother, I have plenty," Esau answered. "Keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insisted, "No, if I found favor with you, please accept this gift from me, and what a relief to see your friendly smile. It is like seeing the face of God. Please take this gift I have brought you, for God has been very gracious to me. I have more than enough." And because Jacob insisted, Esau's family accepted the gift. Well, Esau said, "Let's be going. I will lead the way." But Jacob replied, "You can see, my lord, that some of the children are very young, and the flocks herds have their young too. If they are driven too hard, even for one day, all the animals could die. Please, my lord, go ahead of your servant. We will follow slowly at a place that is comfortable for the livestock. And the children I will meet you at Seir." "All right," Esau said, "but at least let me assign some of my men to guide and protect you." Jacob responded, "That's not necessary. It's enough that you receive me warmly, my lord." So Esau turned around and started back to Seir that same day. Jacob, on the other hand, traveled on no Succoth. There he built himself a house and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place was named Succoth, which means shelters. Later, having traveled all the way from Paran, Jacob arrived safely at the town of Shechem in the land of Canaan. There he set up a camp outside the town. Jacob bought the plot of land where he camped from the family of Hamor, the family of Shechem, for 400 pieces of silver. And there he built an altar and named it El Israel. Genesis chapter 34. One day Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and Leah went to visit some of the younger women who lived in the area. But when the local prince Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, saw Dinah, he he seized her and raped her. But then he fell in love with her, and he tried to win her affection with tender words. He said to his father, Hamor, "Get me this young girl. I want to marry her." Soon Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter, Dinah. But since his sons were out in the fields herding his livestock, he said nothing until they returned. Hamor, Shechem's father, came to us to discuss the matter of Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the field. As soon as they heard of what happened, they were shocked and furious that their sister had been raped. Shechem had done a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family, something that should never be done. Hamor tried to speak with Jacob and his sons. "My son Jacob is truly in love with your daughter," he said. "Please let him marry her. In fact, let's arrange our marriages too. You give us your daughters for our sons, and we'll give you our daughters for your sons. And you may live among us. The land is open to you. Settle here and trade with us, and feel free to buy property in this area." Shechem himself spoke to Dinah's father and brothers. "Please be kind to me and let me marry her," he begged. "I will give you whatever you ask. No matter what dowry or gift you demand, I will gladly pay it. Just give me this girl as my wife." But since Shechem had defiled their sister Dinah, Jacob's sons responded. Deceitfully, they responded to Shechem and his father, Hamor. They said to them, "We couldn't possibly allow this because you're not circumcised. It would be a disgrace for our sister to marry a man like you. But here is a solution. If every man among you would be circumcised like we are, then we will give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves. We will live among you and become one people. But if you don't agree to be circumcised, we will take her and be on our way." Hamor and his son Shechem agreed to their proposal. Shechem wasted no time in acting on this request for them. He wanted Jacob's daughter desperately. Shechem was a highly respected member of his family, and he went with his father Hamor to present his proposal to the leaders at the town gate. "These men are our friends," they said. "Let's invite them to live here among us and trade freely. Look, the land is large, enough to hold them. We can take their daughters as wives and let them marry ours, but they will consider staying here and becoming one people with us only if all our men are circumcised, just as they are. But if we do this, all their livestock and possessions will eventually be ours. Come, let's agree to their terms and let them settle here among us." So all the men in the town considered agreeing with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the town was circumcised. But 3 days later, when their wounds were still sore, two of Jacob's sons, Simon and Levi, who were Dinah's full brothers, took their swords and entered the town without opposition. Then they slaughtered every male there, including Hamor and his son Shechem. They killed them with their swords, then took Dinah from Shechem's house and returned to their camp. Meanwhile, the rest of Jacob's sons arrived, finding the men slaughtered. They plundered the town because their sister had been defiled there. They seized all the flocks and herds and donkeys, everything they could lay their hands on, both inside the town and outside, in the fields. They looted all their wealth and plundered their houses. They took all their little children and wives and led them away as captives. Afterward, Jacob said to Simon and Levi, "You have ruined me. You made me stink among all the people of this land, among all the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are so food that we will join forces and crush us. I would be ruined and my entire household would be wiped out. But why should we let him treat our sister like a prostitute? They were very angry. Jacob's return to Bethel, Genesis chapter 35. Then God said to Jacob, "Get ready and move to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." So Jacob told everyone in the household, "Get rid of all your pagan idols, purify yourself, and put on clean clothing. We are now going to Bethel, where I will build an altar to the God who answered my prayers when I was in distress. He has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all their pagan idols. And earrings, and buried them under the great tree near Shechem, as they set out. A terror from God spread over the town and all the town of that area, so no one attacked Jacob's family. Eventually, Jacob and his household arrived at Luz, also called Bethel in Canaan. Jacob built an altar there and named the place El Bethel, which means God of Bethel, because God had appeared to him there when he was fleeing from his brother Esau. Soon after this, Rebekah's old nurse Deborah died, and she was buried beneath the oak tree in the valley below Bethel. Ever since, the tree has been called El-Labroth, which means oak a-weeping. Now that Jacob had returned from Paran, God appeared to him again at Bethel. God blessed him, saying, "Your name is Jacob, but you will not be called Jacob any longer from now on. Your name will be Israel." So God renamed him Israel. Then God said, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. You will become a great nation, even many nations. Kings will be among your descendants, and I will give you the land I once gave to Abraham and Isaac. Yes, I will give it to you and your descendants after you." Then God went up from the place where he had spoken to Jacob. Jacob set up a stone pillar to mark the place where God had spoken to him. Then he poured wine over it as an offering to God and anointed the pillar with olive oil. And Jacob named the place Bethel, which means house of God, because God had spoken to him there. The deaths of Rachel and Isaac. Leaving Bethel, Jacob and his clan moved on toward Ephrath, but Rachel went into labor while they were still some distance away. Her labor pains were intense. After a very hard delivery, the midwife finally exclaimed, "Don't be afraid, you have another son." Rachel was about to die, but with her last breath, she named the baby Benui, which means son of my sorrow. The baby's father, however, named him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Jacob set up a stone monument over Rachel's grave, and it can be seen there to this day. Then Jacob traveled on and camped beyond Migdal Eder. While he was living there, Reuben had intercourse with Bala, his father's concubine, and Jacob soon heard about it. These are the names of the 12 sons of Jacob. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's older son, Simon, Levi, Judah, Ishar, and Zibeon. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bala were Rachel's servant were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's servant, were Gad and Asher. These are the names of the sons who were born to Jacob at Paran. So Jacob returned to his father Isaac in Mamre, which is near Kiriath-arba, now called Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had both lived as foreigners. Isaac lived for 180 years, then he breathed his last breath and died at a ripe old age, joining his ancestors in death and his sons. Asher and Jacob buried him. So it has a little article here about Rachel. Read about Rachel in Genesis chapter 29, verse 6, and Genesis chapter 35, verse 20. Rachel was very angry. The competition between Rachel and Leah when they was pregnancy to give Jacob sons had hurt the sisters' relationship, and on top of that, Rachel was losing. Although Jacob still loved Rachel more, she was afraid that her inevitability to have children would make him love her less. Just like Rachel, who thought she needed to earn Jacob's love, sometimes we try to earn God's love by what we do. But God loves us no matter what. All we need to do is accept God's love, which He gives us freely. Genesis chapter 36. This is the count of the descendants of Asher, also known as Edom. Asher married two young women from Canaan, Adah, the daughter of Edilan the Hittite, and Olalama, the daughter of Anad and granddaughter of Zevan the Hivite. He also married his cousin Beshmath, who was the daughter of Ishmael and the sister of Nebrah. Adah gave birth to a son named Eliph. Cannot say these names for nothing. Ephraz, I don't know how to say it. Elipphaz for Ezra. Ezra gave birth to a son named Reuel. Ezra gave birth to son named Jerushalem and Korah. All these sons were born to Ezra in the land of Canaan. Ezra took his wives, his sons, his children. Ezra took his wives, his children, and his entire household, along with his livestock and cattle, all the wealth he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and moved away from his brother Jacob. There was not enough land to support them both because of all the livestock and possessions they had acquired. So Ezra, also known as Edom, settled in his hill country of Seir, and this is the count of Ezra's descendant, the Edomites who lived in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Ezra's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Ezra's wife Adah, and Reuel, the son of Ezra's wife Basma. The descendants of Israel were Teman, Omar, Sapio, Gadaman, and Kenaz. Timnah, the concubine of Ezra's son Ephias, gave birth to a son named Emelech. These are the descendants of Ezra's wife Adah. The descendants of Reuel, Reuel, were Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mizah. These are the descendants of Ezra's wife Basma. These are just so hard to say. Ezra also had sons through Oholibah, the daughter of Anna, and granddaughter of Zebulun. Their names were Jewish, Jolam, and Korah. These are the descendants of Esra who became the leaders of various clans. The descendants of Esra's older son, Elivis, became the leaders of the clans of Taman, Oman, Zebra, Kanias, Korah, Ganima, and Emat. These are the clans leaders in the land of Elam who descended from Elivis. All these were descendants of Israel's wife Eddah. I do not know how to say all these names are too difficult. I wish I could skip it. The descendants of Esra's son Reuel became the leader of the clans of Nahah, Nera, Shema, and Meres. These are the clans leaders in the land of Edom who descended from Reuel. All the were descendants of Israel birth. Oh my goodness, I cannot say these names. It's actually making me frustrated. I can't say it. So I read this with audio Bible because I don't know how to say the names right.